Hi everyone, it's Kathy with Sycamore and Cotton, and I'm back this week with 3 projects that are fast and easy, fun to make, and beautiful home decor using thrifted items. So let's get started. First project is a makeover of these 2 candlesticks. I had painted them blue with a white wax over top of that and had them in my booth for quite a while and they didn't sell. So I brought them home and decided to use this gorgeous DIY paint called Cowboy Coral. Yes, Cowboy Coral. It took me a minute. And I gave a good 2 coats of it. Here I'm actually using a wet wipe to kind of smooth down the paint because this paint had been frozen over winter when the electricity was off during some cold spell back in the winter in my studio. And so some of my products froze. This is one of them, and where it had obviously thawed over the months, I had not used it. I added a little bit of water and stirred it and got it to where it was usable, but it did have just a little bit of grit to it. So I think I can get that out eventually, but I went ahead and used it for this project and it worked just fine for me. So I got 2 coats on both candle holders, and here I'm using Waverly's clear matte wax. I'm putting a coat on both of these candle holders because I'm going to come back in with DIY's black wax. And I don't want too much of that black wax to absorb into this beautiful coral paint. But I did want to give it some dimension, age it up a little bit. And I'm actually going to use a coat of the dark wax. And then on top of that, I'll come back in with some white wax. I actually made a couple of candlesticks like this last summer and sold it in one of my booths that I've since closed. So that's why I decided to do these 2. Now I'm getting that black wax on, and another step that I took before applying this black wax is that I dipped my brush in mineral spirits before putting it on the candle holder because that helped thin that wax out and make it even lighter going on. So that is a trick that I learned from Rachel at the Eclectic Cottage, and it works really well. Now that wax has dried, and I'm going over it now with a clear wax that I mixed in a little white paint. I didn't have any white wax, so I made my own using that same clear matte wax that I used in the first step, and I just mixed a little white paint in with it. Here they are side by side with the one with the white wax and the other not yet with the white wax. So you can see the difference in the finish that I'm getting. That white wax is a little bit more than I was wanting. So I'll probably go back, or actually I do go back and do a little bit of dry brushing of the original color to kind of tone down that white wax. Now I'm getting that white wax on the second candle holder. And here they are finished. Just a tip, if you are a reseller and something hasn't sold, you can always give it a different look and see how that works out for you. So going on to the next project, and this is the one that takes the longest out of this video, but it's so sweet, is I'm giving this little bird, which actually was a blank that I bought from Dollar Store. Yes, I got it from the Dollar Store. They had them, and I bought, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them to use as blanks. They're ready to go in the way that they come finished in that kind of creamy color, and they had some little brown dots on them, speckles rather. I didn't like that. I mean, they're cute, but I knew that they could be cuter given some transfers and a different color of paint. So this one is getting a coat of paint, actually 2 coats of paint in Waverly's Plaster. And that's a chalk paint. And I'll pull out my hair dryer and dry it just enough so that I can sit it down without messing up the paint. And then I'll let it finish drying naturally because I'm going to put transfers on there. So now I'm going to move on to the next project, which is basically just putting some thrifted things together to make a cloche. This is a saucer. It's by Mikasa. I love the green color of it. especially for spring, but it would also be beautiful at Christmas and really any time around the year. It'd be pretty at fall as well. So you could use it and just change out what's under the glass. So this is just a glass globe or bowl that I got. I paid a couple of dollars for it, and in looking at it while I was cleaning it, I thought this is probably $1.25 at the Dollar Tree originally. But that's what we run into sometimes at thrift stores. They'll sometimes price things higher than even what you would pay full retail for. But anyway, it is what it is, and it does work well for this project. I'm cleaning it with glass cleaner, getting some specks of paint off of it from where it had been sitting near where I was painting. And the next step that I'll take is deciding on a handle to use. And I had a couple of options. One was a finial, but it was a little bit too large. So I just used this small wooden doorknob, or not doorknob, but drawer knob for furniture. I have a lot of these that I had thrifted some time back, and they come in really handy to make feet on risers, or in this case, a knob for this pretty cloche. I give it a coat of black paint because I plan on coming back with rub and buff, gold rub and buff, and the black paint will just help that rub and buff go on better and look better. While that's drying, I pull out this little riser that I'm going to use for the bird project. I'm getting the label off and getting it cleaned up. It's not too bad in the state that it's in. It has been used for something else. I don't know, something has been there on the top, but this is all that I got with thrifting. I thought it would be beautiful in DIY's Apothecary. I've been using that a lot lately. It's just a nice, pretty spring color, I think. And I give it 2 coats of that. And while it's drying, I'll go back to the cloche and work on it. The paint is dry on the knob, so now I pull out my rub and buff in antique gold, and I'm going to use an old paintbrush to apply it. Oh, that's going to be so pretty on there. So I knew that I wanted to add a rim of the gold rub and buff also around the edges of the saucer. It might have had gold on it originally. I don't know if it did. It had come off. But I thought with the gold lid, this would really help pull the look together, having a gold rim around the edge of the saucer. And I was right. It really does come together very nicely. And that was as simple as just getting some on my finger and just rubbing it around. Now I'm finishing the knob. It does take just a few seconds for the rub and buff to dry, but it does dry quickly, so that's why I jumped over to the saucer, giving that a chance to dry so I could turn it around. Now I'm finished with the rub and buff, and I'm taking a sip of my coffee. It was an afternoon coffee that I was having to get me through the rest of the afternoon. And I cleaned the glass one last time before using E6000 glue to secure the knob to the glass. I was careful applying the glue. I didn't want to have too much, but I wanted to make sure I had enough for a firm grip, but I didn't want a whole lot squeezing out underneath the knob. And I did have just a little tiny bit that did squeeze out, and I was able to clean it with just a damp shop towel. And then I just set it aside to dry, and this is how it looks. What do you think? I think it turned out beautifully. We're 2 projects down and just 1 to go. Back to this little bird. I'm going to be putting different transfers on it. As you can see, I've got several different floral transfers that were just pieces from different transfer sets. And I chose these because I thought the colors went really well together. I have a couple of roses and then a hydrangea and another plant that I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I made relief cuts around pretty much every transfer because I'm putting them on a form rather than a flat surface, and the transfer has to bend with the shape of the bird's body. And by doing those relief cuts, I really didn't have any problems applying the transfers. Everything went on pretty easily. Here, because I jump ahead, I pulled out my gold gilding paint and just dabbed on 2 little dots for the eyes. I did it at this point in putting the transfers on because I wanted to make sure that I didn't get transfers too close to the eye or over the eyes. With the transfers all on now, I pull out my classic crackle by Pent Art. It goes on in 2 steps, and I'm putting the first component on. It's just like it kind of looks like Elmer's glue. Actually, it does look like Elmer's glue a whole lot. And you just brush it on. I'm trying to go lightly because I don't want to get crackling everywhere on the transfers. I did protect the transfers before applying this because crackling medium will often make transfers crack, but if you spray it with a clear top coat, it protects the transfers, and usually they don't crack before putting that, if you do that before putting on step 1. So I did that, and now I'm putting on step 1. When that dries, I'll go to step 2. And step 2 is applied the same way as step 1. It's just a different component, and it's a little thinner than the step 1. So you want to make sure that you don't go too heavily or it will run and drip. After it's dried with the hair dryer, I will set it aside and give it a chance for that crackle to continue forming. And then I'll go on back to the riser that the bird will be sitting on. And at this point, it's got both coats of paint on it, and now I'm just using a fine sandpaper to go around and just give it light distressing. I'm bringing back some of the original color, which is that creamy beige that it was originally in, and just lightly distressing. And also cleaning up the bottom where a little bit of the paint had gotten on the bottom. I decided not to paint it because of the sticker pads that were on there, and I didn't have any more to replace those with, and so I just left them on and did not paint the bottom. I noticed that the riser was a little wobbly, so I ended up taking the top off. It kind of twisted off, and just putting it back on. There were 2 little staples, and I applied some glue, Titebond glue there, and then put it back on and twisted it on really well, and then turned it back over, got out my hot glue and filled the top hole with hot glue, and that stabilized it. Now I've pulled out some Spanish moss, a wreath that I had already formed. I actually thrifted a bag full of Spanish moss that was already formed into little, not wreath, but bird nests. At this point, I'm just kind of playing around with the things that I pulled out to finish this project off with. That's the nest, and I have a small vine wreath that I had made some time ago. I've pulled out some wispy faux greenery, and I have some faux green moss. That's what I'm taking out now. As you can see, it's stretchy, and at first it doesn't look like it's very realistic, but when you start using it, it's absolutely beautiful and works so well. And one of the things that I like about it is because it's synthetic, it doesn't fall apart. It doesn't dry and crumble like your regular moss would do. Here I'm jumping back to the little bird. After getting the two components of the crackle on, I'm now putting on a clear wax. Again, I want to put a dark wax on over that, and I want to be able to control how much dark wax stays on the project. So I put that clear wax on, and then I'll come back with Waverly's antiquing wax. And what that will do is bring out the crackle. But I've set it aside to dry and going back to the greenery now. And I'm separating some of the pieces that I plan to use, just cutting them into smaller sections to make it easier. Now I'm applying the antiquing wax, and I even use a really wet brush so that it goes on thinner and lighter, and I apply it all over the bird and I wipe it off immediately. And I didn't get the kind of crackle that I had hoped to get, but it's okay. I'm not complaining too much. So now I get back to doing the floral part, and I did end up placing all of this, what you're looking at right now, on a small saucer. It was another saucer that I had thrifted. It was only one, and I didn't have any plan for it, so I just decided to use it to make a base for that saucer, for that bird and the wreath and all of the greenery that's going on around it, to sit on the riser. I am going to glue it onto the riser using hot glue, but I didn't want to use a glue like Type Bond or E6000, because whoever buys this in the future may want to remove this little bird and the wreath and use it for another reason, and if I use the hot glue, it will be easier for them to remove. I did the same thing in gluing the wreath and the nest to the saucer. Again, I want people to, if someone should decide to take it apart in the future, it will be easier for them to remove. And in the meantime, it is held on well with the hot glue. One last thing for the riser is applying the clear wax. I should have done that before I put the greenery on top, but I completely forgot. So now I'm applying it, and it works out just fine, but I should have done it beforehand. And here it is. I think it turned out so cute. Here are the three projects together. I did select a small greenery wreath to sit down on the saucer, and then place a little gold bird in it. I think that just helps tie all of it together perfectly. There's that sweet little bird in its beautiful nest on top of the riser, and those candlesticks. They may not quite match the bird, but I think everything turned out really beautifully. But you let me know what you think, and thank you so much for watching. I appreciate the support that I get from all of my viewers. If you're new here, thanks so much for stopping by, and those of you who are returning, I'm always so happy to see you here. Leave me a comment regardless, and let me know where you're watching from, what you like best. If you have any tips for me, I'd love to hear them. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks again.